I figured we were gonna have more of a chapter focused on Tsurugi, and as I've mentioned, he's in the contending spot for my favorite character. I feel it's hard to really say in the large scope because obviously it's not like we have a lot of in-depth information as well as displays of character for a lot of these different people within the verse at the moment. It's primarily obviously Kiyoshi getting the character that is the most important up in front and center first. And I do really like Kiyoshi, but it's like I don't want to count the main character right now, just because like until I have a person that is otherwise my favorite, I don't want to count him. But Kiyoshi is obviously already up there, but at the same time, it's hard to count the main character really for, like I said. So as it were, the chapter it started out just showing a little bit of the like the first, like essentially how the last chapter ended in the first responses to that. And also I like that the cover was super simple. It was just Kiyoshi and Akari, but it made it a little misleading to where you thought it was going to be a Akari moment, but it wasn't the case. But also I'm imagining that the reason it's done in a simple manner is because it's getting another color page next week, which is going to be really cool. But this chapter is named after the fifth demon lord, Baku Yuraku, who is going to be the one we're seeing fight first. I did really like that Maoroku, when he looked up and saw the attack from Tsurugi, and he was saying he's pretty happy that he wasn't there to get hit by that, which makes sense because we know that he's weaker than Sada, so he would get completely one shot by this. It's completely undeniable. I'm curious to know the general idea when it comes to the way that the exorcisms work. If they just get completely overwhelmed, it's like a level of power that just hits them, they're just unable to come back from, and even through regeneration. Because there's still some stuff we don't have direct, again, in detail of within the verse. I feel like that's something we can just assume for right now. It's just one of those things. Maybe it's just, oh yeah, it's just so much power that went into that wound and you can't heal through it because too much holy damage. But Maoroku, he was coming in just doing his thing again, continuing to fight all these guys. Deputy commanders, as we've seen, are not within range to fight one of these demon lords yet. At least this guy. We don't know where they can like scale in the large span of things, but at least this dude, obviously he was the one that was just going to be on display. He'll probably be one that's not that powerful in once we see a lot more characters kind of come up to plate rather, because I just imagine that he's kind of old and relatively is past where he's at like a continuous growing point. He's probably at that spot where he would have like growth in battle, but he's probably not gaining a lot of strength outside of those, push your limits moments of what you can still do. Whereas, like, imagine a lot of these younger characters, they still have a lot of potential and things to progress throughout their whole move set and whatever they end up kind of taking in the future. Because it's hard to say. I'm really curious as to like what we're gonna see for the verse as power expansion, other than characters who don't have a crest get a crest. Like, is Kiyoshi gonna get a weapon at some point? Is there like something where, oh yeah, I can add an attribute, an element, and then I can use my same abilities but switch it to a different style? I don't know. I'm very curious as to where it's going to be. I'm kind of hoping they stick into these style, like characters have their own branch style, and maybe instead of swapping too much, you just add something that's complementary onto it. That's what I'm hoping for, because that's usually, in my opinion, the best way that you can upgrade characters is have that kind of foundational setup, and then either do things that complemented or loop things into kind of like make weird combos where the abilities eventually kind of all work together. But here we have Kyoka. She just comes in, blocks this dude. She absolutely overpowering him, and then just kicks his head off, clean off. And I was wondering if he was going to have like a regeneration moment and then fight. But this is what I was saying. Is like, it seems to be that if they just get enough damage in, because I assume that her attacks aren't just like she's just hitting. She's also using the Precept power to do exorcist techniques, because she didn't use any of her crests, but I would assume that just in logic she's going to be using her powers to fight a demon lord, even if it's the weakest one. And again, it makes sense that she was able to just destroy him, because we know that Sada was completely one-shot overpowered by Kiyoshi, so people like her, it should be no problem for her to beat somebody that's weaker than even him. Outside of that, we get a really weird moments. Also, her tiger is eating out Moroku's body, but one of the minions, like, I call him a minion, but just lower exorcist, just kind of side guy Magoo, he ends up turning into like a bauble thing. I don't really know what to look at. I immediately thought, what are those things called? Mighty Beans from like the early 2000s. That's immediately what I thought of. I might be thinking of something else. But we get one of the higher ranked demon lords. She is number 4, because I remember, as far as I know, because Mukurojima is 2, Kurose is 3, this girl's 4, 5, yeah, because 5 is the chapter named Baku Yuraku, 6 is Hydrako, and then we don't know 7 through 11. Somewhere Mado's in there, somewhere Jack Joe is in there, unless Jack Joe was replaced. Some of those ranks, like I said, are still unknown. But this girl, she lifts up her sash, her eye cover, and she has this really cool looking eye. I really like that. That was just really neat about the chapter for this kid, because I mentioned before that her design was probably, besides Maroku, the one that I was least interested in, but she at least added something that immediately made me like her design and her character more. And she doesn't have like the general Gorgon thing of turning them to stone. It looks like she turned this guy into a toy or something strange. I don't really know what it's supposed to be. Maybe just, I wish it was those the inflatable tube waving dudes. But she's just, I would imagine that she's not gonna lose this fight, but at the same time it should still be pretty high up for her to handle. I can't really say that honestly, because like thinking now, because we didn't see Tsurugi at all in this chapter, so I'm thinking that maybe he's going to be fighting Kurose and Mukurojima at the same time, until maybe one of them switches over to Kiyoshi or Sakaki. I would imagine maybe Sakaki for right now, and then Kiyoshi, I guess, just for the time being until Zudaroth shows up. But at that point, he needs to move. Like, I don't know. His is kind of like a weird one, because I would like to see a fight with them, but I want everyone to be ready for like the upcoming fights. Because if anyone's gonna fight, whoever Demon Lord rank 1 is, I would imagine it's gonna be Sakaki and not Kiyoshi, because Kiyoshi's gonna be the one to fight Azudaroth. And also on top of that, I would hope that once they get to that fight, any of the characters that can still fight and they're, they have the capability of assisting, even if it's one momentary bit of assistance to Kiyoshi versus Azudaroth, I would imagine that would be really helpful, because it would be good for their characters, but also Kiyoshi is not in a position or mindset, I would imagine, to where he would be like, this has to be a one-on-one in full. I don't want anyone intervening. It'd be, I would imagine he doesn't want people to risk getting killed, but he would also, like, he would understand people wanting to do anything they can to help him, because if he loses, then it's all over, I would assume. We don't know if there's any other characters out in the verse that would suddenly show up. There are, in theory, other cross paladins, because we know that there were 5 in total, but we don't know if it's 5 that are alive that hold the rank or have held the rank, because it's really certain if they still count Sakaki or not. And then, we have Tsurugi and Kyoka, but there's still others we don't have. But then it's like, well, I don't imagine they're just going to have them just pop in and have new characters when we have other characters that can, be participating and doing things. Because at least as of right now, besides, it's like I said, you got Kiyoshi, Sakaki, Tsurugi, Kyoka. But then you also have Hitsugi, and you have Nihon and Jack Joe, and that's at least like the most solid layout. I mean, if any of the characters from the other squads want to raise up their status and to be a little bit more noteworthy of a returning character, I'm all for it. I would imagine as of right now, at least in display, that none of them would be able to really keep up, because out of all the people that aren't high ranked, the only one that I know I would be able to put some faith into in that kind of scenario would be Hitsugi, because he's one of those characters that he's high potential, but he just seems to be, he's young and he's growing into it, and also he lacks a lot of the, I feel like, the experience with, like, when they talked about how exorcists, like, seeing death in the face and coming back from near death experiences make them stronger. I feel like that's also where Hitsugi's at, where he has the dedication and he has the drive, but it's just a lack of being in those moments to really forge his character, where he's just, right now he's just young, he wants to really get out there and make his mark, but it's and climb the ladder, but it's just not something that he can do without these kind of experiences under his belt. Which, again, I like that about the characters, because that's kind of how Kiyoshi is, but Kiyoshi's a lot more naive than Hitsugi. It just, clearly there's just an awkward higher level to him, but even though he's clearly much more powerful than Hitsugi, he thinks Hitsugi's really cool. But also, like, when we saw this lady, I remember her name, Gorgon. I don't know how it's pronounced. Gorgon Made. I don't know how her second name, her last name is supposed to be pronounced, but Gorgon. But she versus Kyoka, I'm more confident in this scenario. I did like seeing Kyoka in the chapter just as a display, just showing brute force. Obviously, she's got her cool buff spirit tiger, and then I don't even think it's a spirit tiger. I think it's just straight up like a monster tiger at that point. It's not even like, oh, it does an astral form around. I think it's just outright buffed in like a full mini kaiju, and she's doing like some full out, like, almost like baiting some Sims thing going on with some of her squad. But I did like that at the same time they're like, all right, boss, we appreciate it. Like, they're going to be flattered, but I imagine for all of them it's also going to be a little awkward. But for her, like I said, her versus Gorgon, I looked at that fight, I'm like, okay, yeah, I can see that being like a battle where she having, I'm only see it maybe being like a medium level difficulty. Like, she's probably, like, if she gets beyond half of her strength to fight this chick, I will be impressed. I don't imagine so. I would imagine any of the cross paladins, they should, like, 1v1, they should be able to fight the, like, rank 1 demon lord. I guess it's like the whole thing, it's like, okay, well, they can't just 1v1 a Zudaroth or any of the great demon lords. I think they should be able to at full power beat one of the, beat the top, at least the number 2. There's no way that she's getting fully checked at number 4. I don't believe that, because she's clearly very powerful, and the mangaka has been wanting to do stuff with her. Clearly, every single time she's on screen, she just seems to have a little moment of flair, and it's only a couple chapters so far, but I mean, that's enough consistently. But right after that page, it showed Bakuraku and Yoko Ono. I was not confident that she was going to win this fight, and then she's accompanied by, like, other members of Sanguine, and I like the confirmation that Sanguine is like a law. It's just these are crazed physical fighters. We got Squad 11 right here. Oh god, hang on a second. What is my dog doing? There we go. This man was trying to eat all this barbecue sauce. But anyway, the whole bit with Bakuraku, I really liked the display where he was just showing, yeah, he's got, because I thought it was just the mask. I thought it was just a design thing, but he actually has 6 eyes, and he sees all these guys rush him. And again, I didn't really think that any of these dudes were going to be really that powerful. I mean, Yoko Ono seems to have the clear, like, she's clearly strong, but I just didn't see her really fighting like, if she was against, like, Demon Lord, if she was against Moroku, I would say okay. But this is number 5, clearly is way too high up there, because her boss is fighting number 4. And I don't see that she's that, like, barely weaker than Kyoka. I just don't see it. But I really liked when they rushed him, and it was just, he looks in all these different directions. Each eye is seems to be independent, and he does all these counterattacks and then just does this really cool melee combo. The thing though I really want to see in this next chapter or two is I really want to see what the demon abilities and whatnot are, because we haven't had much, because we have gotten some explanation on the Exorcist powers, but we haven't really even seen much of the demon powers on display since the beginning, because we've moved around a little bit. We've mostly seen, because most of the demon lord stuff we saw was at the start. We saw Jack Joe and Tsurugi, but like it was much shorter, obviously, because it was intervened. We saw like Memi and stuff in the forest, but like we've seen attacks that are like charged black energy balls and whatnot, but we don't have any like definitive stuff of like how many of these things are like a character specific thing, how many of these things are like, oh, do the demons have their own power system and like martial arts or like technique systems that they all use? Is there like a shared way that we're going to be able to understand this? That's one thing I'm really hoping we get to in this arc, is we have at least one fight that explains a structured idea of how the demon powers work, because I kind of like the idea that the demons themselves, they have their own innate traits. Like Bakuraku has 6 eyes, so he has this supervision, and he combined that into martial arts, and then it's like, okay, he's able to essentially fight in every single direction around him, visually see everything, and he's got this long trident pitchfork weapon, so he's got this long reach. It's just like the way that you combine them to where it's, oh yeah, they have this physical trait that gives them this skill that they translate into some form of fighting or ability, and then after that you add on like a power or two. That'll be a really satisfactory structure for me. I want to know, because it's like maybe the physical stuff that like leads to their fight, like their general fighting style, that is unique to them, but all of the demons have a kind of like shared structure. Like they all have a power system, but it's all kind of set up to be all with them. Like if they were all a Pokemon that had the same move pool, but obviously they're not all on the same level, so some of them unlock levels or abilities differently. So it's like, oh yeah, everybody that is level 10 has these abilities down, well level 30 has these abilities down. So it's like every single time you get a higher one, they're always going to have the weaker abilities, but every single time you get a new one, it has the whole way to introduce a new style of techniques and whatnot. I don't know, but that's just one of those things early in the verse that is fun, but at the same time I'm really hoping we see it, because the 6 eyes movement was really cool, but we didn't really get much direct display. I would imagine too, if we get anything that kind of explains the form that Nihon gets in the chapter in terms of like direct powers in the next bit, I'm hoping it's a way similar to, oh, he gains this ability, or he's able to use Jack Joe's powers that he otherwise isn't able to really control, which confirms that it's Nihon utilizing skills that Jack Joe has in his arsenals all from him, and not something that they get exclusively while they're using this technique. So that way it would be the same thing, I would imagine, with Sakaki and High Stakes, where they're High Stakes has these innate demon abilities, but because when they they have their own contract when he uses his whole ability. Does like Sting, is it an added ability that he does, or is this something he has on his own that oh yeah, because you're contracted to me, I can draw on this power? Is that how it's gonna work? Because that would be cool to me in the way that it then starts to lay out ideas of what the demons do, but who knows. It was really nice to see Akari jump in and try and do what she could do in any scenario that she can to help Yoko, because I mentioned this before, and this was one thing I really liked about the chapter, is she obviously is not powerful. We know that right now in the series. Like, she does not have really any combat use right now. She's very, like, she could provide small amounts of like range support, and she's really good at, she's got her whole sensory ability, but she does not have anything in this whole setup to where she's going to pop off in combat. And I was hoping maybe that for a second it could have been that, but I was preferring that we don't see anything really for, especially jumping up to number 5, just because she is the only character right now that is, as far I can trying to think if there's anyone else that is not powerful. And I think that she holds the value of somebody that it'll be good to see her get stronger over time, because it'll keep someone grounded, but it'll show like these steps for where she goes from, where she's at here, where she's unable to fight, but she's trying and doing anything she can to, keep Yoko from getting killed, to do anything with the people that she's, grouped up with to try and fight all these demons. It's stuff like that that's very commendable for a character, and it'll be good to see later when she is capable, the difference between now, currently in the story, and the idea of that later in the story. But Jack Joe and Nihon, man, I like I said, I thought this was going to be a Tsurugi chapter. I was so happy that Jack Joe and Nihon came out here with one, like the cool, I knew it as soon as like the big black hand like face slam went down, but also I figured they were going to fight just because they have to be related with the fact that Bakuraku's face mask looks exactly like Jack Joe's, except with more eyes. But I really liked the cool way that his arms stretch, because he has this weird extra long leg and arms when he has the full form on. I would assume that there's like degrees of what he does, because Jack Joe and Nihon, they seem to have fused, and he's got like these cool black layered hands. I really like the design. I want to say that I really like the design, because it's simple, but it's cool. Because this is I would assume Form 1. This is a character design and style that I would assume as he gets more powerful, the form will probably upgrade whenever he gets like it just that whole structure of power upgrade system. He'll get something cooler and cooler as the story progresses. But this is a really good start, because it's one, the whole white sheet on top of him. First off, the whole ghost design with the horns looks really cool. Also, it's tattered and ripped to where it gives it just this little sleek bit of edge. The scowling eyes with the zip mouth looks badass, but at the same time, it gives him like the fact that you see his normal mouth gives him, obviously you can tell he's not a monster, he's not a demon or anything, he's not like a specter, he's a person under there. And then his general structure set up with his powers, he's got regular like pants and shoes on, but he's got like this cool demon energy layered over his arms and most of his hands to give out this fingerless glove like long sleeve setup. And then and this was one of the things I talked about too, is like we talked about the weapon for Bakuraku. He's got this pitchfork, but now Nihon's got this cool like javelin weapon. It looks badass. I really like it. I wonder if he can change it, if it's a solidified like his weapon is always like this, or if it's like he can shift the cool, whatever that energy layer that he had on top of him at one point. Can he shift that into a weapon, and then he like equips it and re-equips it? I don't know. I still like, maybe that'll go into what I thought, because I thought it was going to be more of the idea where, similar to High Stakes, he would turn into something and he would do a game or some form of contracted setup that would give him a weapon. Maybe that'll be similar to that too. It's like he gets a different weapon for like the forms. But I don't know, because I was thinking maybe he drops like a thing. It's like, what's under the mask, and he lifts it up and it's a weapon, and he has like this cool whatever. It would have to fuse in, I guess, I imagine, similar to High Stakes. So it would be this whatever, like a Jack Joe sword, which actually would be kind of cool. But as it were, I thought this chapter was really hype. I was interested at the start, really thinking it was going to be a Tsurugi chapter, but it moved around in strong ways that I enjoyed, because like I said, I just as a recap, I really liked getting Moroku's reaction to Tsurugi, because it's good to see when villains have inner monologue and thoughts like that, just because it gives them a little bit more, even though he's just a bad guy, him having moments where he's just a little bit awkward and being like, oh fuck, I'm glad I didn't get by that, I'd be dead. It makes the demons a little bit more less one-dimensional, because I don't really care about random demons that just exist, no names, but I think anything that has like a existence in the story, it's nice for them not to just be generic demons, no value whatsoever, no design or personality or anything like that. But Baku Yuraku was really cool in this chapter. Like I said, I really liked Akari just getting involved, but I really have to say that the thing that once I got to it really took my focus on in this entire chapter, and I know I rambled on a lot about a lot of stuff, but like I said, I really enjoyed this manga, and there was a lot in this that I thought was just fun in reading, and the Jackjo Nihon form fusion just looks really cool. I love it. He looks like this almost Halloween kid Satan look. It looks so cool, and I'm trying to think of like any other like general description. He's the spirit of Halloween, I guess. I mean, that's the most closest. But the horns and the javelin just make him look like he's if the spirit of Halloween was a hot chick and hooked up with the devil. There you go. That's this manga in a different timeline. Well, actually, kind of. It's a little bit of Blue Exorcist. But anyway, other than that, I'll talk to you guys on the next one, and we'll see what happens in the next chapter. Next week. Other than that, talk to you guys later. Bye.